Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is Pod 143, and I'm here with my co-host, as always, Leta Herman.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers.
Oh, Leta, I'm so excited today. We have a special guest in the studio, remote studio.
Yay!
And we had a really wonderful, inspiring conversation with him recently. And I know, Leta, you've been waiting to tell everyone, and I've heard you tell a few people, but now you can tell the world that part one,
yes,
it was so great we divided it into two. Part one is going to be available right now.
Yes. And we're so excited and honored to sit down with the extraordinary Deng Ming-Dao, author, artist, teacher, and lifelong practitioner of Taoism. He is the author of a book I read every morning, The 365 Tao. It's a beautiful book of really heartfelt and meaningful poems. And he's written so many other, wonderful Taoist books. And even my favorite of all time, The Wandering Taoist, which, by the way, has an awesome audiobook version you can still get on Audible or wherever you get your audiobooks. Plus, he's written so many more Taoist books. We're currently, Jay and I are both reading The Scholar Warrior. It's just been a really good reread for us. And there's just so many more beautiful books that he's written.
And he's an artist.
Yes.
I don't know if a lot of people know that.
Yes.
But he's like the real deal artist.
Yes. And, he's also a martial artist, and he teaches martial arts, and he's studied with people from Huashan, which is where a lot of our Taoist lineage, that we've been studying comes from, Wudanshan. He's just amazing in all of these categories. But today, we're so excited about the fact that he's an artist, because today is about creativity and how important it is to be creative in your life, and even to make it part of your daily practice of self-cultivation. Ming-Dao reminds us that making art isn't just a side hobby, it's a path back to our original nature.
Yeah, and if you question whether your creativity counts as your spiritual work, this conversation shows, in my opinion, it's not just part of the path. It might actually be the path. I know for me, art and alchemy is what it's all about. And I think that we talked a little bit about different facets of art and creativity, and art and spirit aren't separate here. They're two sides of the same inspired transformational journey.
And I just want to say, I just love that he is an artist.
Yeah. And for me personally, Leta, I'm grateful that he articulated so well many of the ideas about creativity and self-cultivation that I've expressed to people over the years. He just said a little bit better than I did, right? He's a great writer. And it's really important for anyone's spiritual path that is, thinks of themselves as an artist. And, but you don't have to be like an artist. You can be a creative person. You can have creativity in your life all day long. You can, and think of yourself as a creative person. I could have spent the whole day talking to him about art and creativity and spirituality. He was so generous with his time with us. We just really enjoyed it. And I just want to say thank you for listening or watching this podcast. We're now on YouTube a little bit. And if you like any part of this experience on the Inspired Action Podcast, please take a minute, 30 seconds, just a little bit to rate and review the Inspired Action Podcast. It really does help other people find us. We get emails every day from all over the world, and it just blows our mind. And we're so grateful and so happy. So people find us that way. So you do help us to reach other people.
Yeah. And before we start our interview, we just want to, we have a big announcement today.
What? What kind of big announcement?
We have a new book that is now out. You can get it online wherever you get books.
Cool.
It's called Cultivating the 13 Ghost Points. So check it out. We're going to have a book launch party in June. If you're listening to this in June 2025. So
if not, you can time travel back and we'll be there. So you can check out the alchemylearningcenter.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our free membership if you want, or do the paid membership if you want. It's not a lot, but you get so much in the Learning Center, classes, webinars, meditations. We have a super active community right now. So if you want to be in the loop, get invited to the book party launch, sign up, alchemylearningcenter.com. And again, thank you so much for being part of this journey.
Yes. And without further ado, we welcome Deng Ming-Dao.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Thank you for joining us today on the Inspired Action Podcast. And we have a wonderful treat for everyone today. We have Ming-Dao Deng, who is just this amazing person that we revere quite a lot. I've been working with his books now for many years and find them quite inspiring. Every day I read a poem from the 365 Tao book that we appreciate so much. And we are just so excited to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you.
Right. And today we're going to talk about art and creativity and just see if we can tie it all into alchemy and self-cultivation in a way that's really inspiring. And I'm just going to let Leta start with Ming Dao and let's get going.
Great. Well, the premise of today is that we're really focusing on self-cultivation, and as we do often in this podcast. And the idea here is a lot of people may not think of art as part of a self-cultivation practice. And you are an artist as well as, martial artist and Daoist and all of the things that you're doing, but art being a major aspect of your life. And so we wanted to have a conversation today about why is art so important for self-cultivation? And maybe we just need to start with the concepts of self-cultivation and just, look at how we would define that and why is it relevant or important in terms of people who are looking to transform in their lives. So what would you say? Yeah, go ahead.
When you hear the word self-cultivation in English, it sounds very fancy, but perhaps we should invoke the Chinese version. And the Chinese version that is used to say self-cultivation actually means repair. Well, why do we need repair? And I think the unspoken premise is that all of us are torn down by life. But in a Taoist context, the Taoists would say we're also ruined by socialization. We need to fix that. So if you can look more closely at the Taoist idea, they always are talking about the natural self. But the natural self is obscured by education, social expectations, and perhaps our own foibles. So self-cultivation is about recovering from those problems and getting back to your natural self. The Taoists feel that your natural self is perfect. Just like in Chinese medicine, they say that your health is meant to be good. And if there's a problem, then there's a blockage in the movement in your body. It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that there's something interfering with your natural health. So self-cultivation is about eliminating or diminishing those things which interfere with who you really are and what you really have to offer in this world. So in that case, being an artist is important. Now let me ask you, every art is made by a person. And yes, we're distracted now by AI and all this kind of stuff, and by artists who, will hire a foundry to make their art or whatever it is, right? But ultimately, all good art has to come from a person. Now, if you haven't been an artist, you might not know this, but every piece changes you. And every piece is going to be a little bit good and a little bit bad. So the next solution, or the only solution, is you finish one piece well and you go on to the next piece. And that becomes your entire life. There's not a single artist I know who hasn't gone to the very end. My poetry teacher was correcting page proofs on his deathbed. And every artist just simply wants to drop dead in their studio, and that's it. Because it's a continual process of learning and creating. What comes from creation? Where does it come from itself? It comes from inside you. And don't you want that impulse to be as clear as possible? believe me, there are many mistakes you make in the studio, and people should not be deterred by mistakes. The creative process is littered with them, and you still have to make something for it. That takes great discipline, perseverance, and that ends up being self-cultivation.
Beautiful. Yeah, that was really nice. And I do think it's true. Art comes from the person who's creating it and how their life is structured, whether they're doing Tai Chi or Qigong. If you want to talk maybe a little bit about that as well. I know a lot of your work is about breath and movement. How do you think that can be tied into creating and creativity?
So if you read the writings of old or ancient Chinese artists, they write quite a bit about this, because what counts in painting is the artist's chi. And if you've seen great calligraphy, I mean, you have to look at real calligraphy up close. You can see the grains of ink just lining up in that stroke. And that's the power and the energy of the artist. So, can you get that from typography? Can you get that, from a carved wooden sign? All those things are valid expressions too, but they aren't that original energy of the artist. So one of the phrases in the ancient writings about art is um, lively movement and chi resonance. Now, Western scholars have translated qi as spirit resonance, which kind of confuses those of us who understand Jing, Qi, and Shen. But that's why it's so important to go back and look at the Chinese and not depend on translations. All right, what does lively movement mean? That literally means it's aligned with life itself. Same with Tai Chi, same with Chinese medicine. These are movements that are aligned with life. And then Qi resonance. Well, think about that. That means you have to have Qi, but what are they resonating with? They're resonating with a greater idea of Qi all around us, which is true. And so our art has to resonate with the energy of the universe, of the Tao. And so this has been part of Chinese tradition for centuries. And there's a connection with all of that. Now, you asked about Tai Chi. Tai Chi is an art form in that it is both transformational and expressive. How is it transformational? It's a martial art. I mean, people who practice it now and are well-meaning and in the park and so on don't realize the martial content of it. And it's just as deadly as any other kind of martial art. But they're changing it. They're making it into a form of self-cultivation. In so doing, they're repurposing the violence of that art into something else. And isn't that what art is about? It's about taking the inexpressible, the sprawling, the vast, the powerful, and making it into art, something delicate and beautiful, well proportioned and well formed. Tai Chi is about cultivating Qi, and I'm sure your audience understands that the Qi of breathing is not the Ji of Tai Chi, right? But I just want to cover that. But Tai Chi can't work without Qi. It circulates your Qi, it flows through there. And in so doing, aren't you back at that Qi resonance? Aren't you back at lively movement? And aren't you turning away, or shall we say, transforming the martial content of Tai Chi, the lessons, the years of memorization, all the stories? You're taking all of that and you're elevating that to another level, which is the level of art and creativity. If you really look at good Tai Chi practitioners, even if they're from the same school, they don't look the same. How come? They don't look the same because they've infused this, quote, standardized form with their own personality. That also is a kind of transformation. So Tai Chi, Qigong, Chinese medicine, self-cultivation, art, and creativity, they all come from the same source. And that's why we practice all of them in order to change ourselves.
It's so perfect. I mean, we talk about that a lot. And I don't know if you have any questions, Lita. I'm kind of
Yeah, I had a question because you
Yes,
mentioned
please.
expression and Shen, Qi, and Jing. And I was thinking about the Shen or even the five spirits and the idea that the Shen is here to express itself and that like if we talk about the five spirits a little bit on this podcast, like the idea of the Yi, the spirit of the spleen, the earth element, having ideas. And we have this compulsion as human beings to express ourselves or even to express an identity. And I was thinking that art is a lot of that expression, and that for some reason that seems important in self-cultivation, the act of expression, maybe visually or writing poetry or even the movement, Tai Chi being not necessarily, we wouldn't call it dance, but like you said, it can be very different depending on the person doing it. So I wondered what you thought about this need as human beings to express and partly how that informs our self-cultivation.
So it's undeniable each of us is a person under heaven and on earth. And what do we have to do here? Every human being has to work to live. If you go back to, say, early days, well, you had to farm or you had to hunt and fish and so on. It's no different now. You have to go to the store. Maybe you're going to pick up a phone or your mobile phone and dial Uber or whatever. That's still work. And you have to do that every day. So let's say that for you to live on this planet, you have to work. But is that all you have to do? Everybody gives testament to their experience on this planet, even if it's just talking to somebody in line at the store, even if it's just sighing, laughing, crying. You are going to express yourself. A creative person takes that one step further. Can you take feeling and put it into form? I can yell, I can be mad, I can laugh, I can cry, I can be overcome with grief, but can I put that into form? Tai Chi is form. They call it that, right? Are you learning the forms? 24 forms, 48 forms, or whatever it is. The great artists help us when we are overwhelmed because they can put our feelings into form. This is a natural part of being a human being. This is not some acquired skill. Look at the cave paintings. Somebody put a handprint there. Someone drew a bison there. Someone drew people there. We give testament to our existence on this planet. Why? I think part of the assignment for every person is to reconcile their individuality with the collective. Do any of us really live alone? How do we negotiate our time with a spouse or children or family and so on? Yes, you have your individual needs and you have some sort of obligation or relationship with other people. And so you're going to express yourself and share your experience because ultimately this species proceeds generation by generation not necessarily person by person. And it's only the collective knowledge that is going to help the species evolve. And we all instinctively understand that. We might not attend to it, or we might not contribute to it very, significantly, but it's a real thing. And so expression is important. Well, if expression is putting the inarticulated, the ineffable, into words or into form, how good is that form? And that's where the artist has to practice, or a person has to cultivate themselves. A person practicing Tai Chi tries to be better this year than last year, not because of vanity, but because of trying to get closer to good form in expression. And that's where this is all related. And we're back to self-cultivation again, because it's part of your very existence, the very meaning of you being here on this earth.
Yeah. And I read on your website, and I know you speak about practice every day. And there's like, for your own reasons, for your own purpose. And I feel that way. We have a lot of students, and they really are like dedicated, and they want to do it, but they really struggle with the daily practice, whether it's Qigong, Tai Chi, any kind of like meditation. What would you say to that someone who really wants to do it, but they have obstacles that they can't seem to move? And I deal with this a lot, and it's very challenging. And they really, I don't know. I wanted to know what you thought on what advice would you give them?
If you want to get somewhere, and especially if you want to get somewhere that is significant, it's going to be difficult. How are you going to get there? And the only way to get there is to work on it every day.
Yeah.
And here's the problem. We are trained in this society to acquire things. You see, we think, oh, I'm just learning a skill so I can get a job. I mean, that's the stupidest thing out there. And yet people still advance that theory.
Yeah.
And so people think, well, I'm just doing this for the sake of something else. But no, you have to do it for your own sake. You're not doing this for a job. You're not doing this for a certificate. You're not doing this to be famous. You're doing this for yourself. And until you understand that you're there for yourself, it's always going to be difficult. Why? Because it's hard. But now look at that, turn that around. The only people who become great are the people who do things that are hard. And the only way they got to do things that were hard is that they worked at it every day.
Every day.
Now,
Yeah.
I will tell you, most people, I would almost say all people I meet, that's how most people are. They don't do something every day. But they do other things every day, don't they? They look at their
Yes.
phone, they watch TV, they
They
have
brush
to
their
eat,
teeth.
brush
I'm
their
like,
teeth, and
do you
so
have that question every day if you're going to brush your teeth? And they're like, no.
right? And they go to sleep every day and so on. So, but then they go, well, I have to do it. Well, until you can discover that impulse in yourself where you have to do this too, you're going to struggle. So, in summation, don't do anything for the sake of some external standard. And by the way, just because you're an artist or you're creative or you do something every day doesn't mean anyone's going to like you anymore or help you anymore.
It's so true. It's so true.
So unless you can understand that it's for your own sake, it's not going to work very well.
It's like a gift to yourself.
It is it is the ultimate gift to yourself. But I will go back to what you said about expression. Why are we here? Are we here just to be consumers? Buy stuff?
Collect
Vote?
stuff.
Walk down the street? Be a customer? We have been so warped by our society that our only role is to be a customer. Even if you go to a temple in Asia, there's a gift shop.
Yes.
Right?
Everyone.
I haven't done anything unless I bought something. I haven't been there unless I have a souvenir, which is all, of course, completely absurd. We need to get away from this kind of materialism and return to ourselves. We realize that we are spirits, that we are individuals, that we need to do something in this lifetime that's significant. And that means doing it every day. Because if you don't, other things that happen every day are going to shape you. Is that what you want? Do you want to just be haphazardly shaped by the market, by what politicians tell you? That seems totally stupid to me.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me back to this idea of Wu Wei and inspiration in general. I was thinking about the idea of even traditionally of the muse and art in general. And you mentioned early on that you thought that, well, you questioned where does this inspiration come from, within ourselves or without? And it's an interesting dilemma. Where does that come from? And is it, I mean, to me, it's the inspiration is part of the self-cultivation. And I didn't know if you had more to say about that.
Well, somebody in another interview was asking me about the inner voice.
Mm.
But now, if someone came to you and said, I hear voices, wouldn't you be alarmed? So let me.
Well, not in our business, but we deal with a lot of people.
Well, you would
but
be
in general,
concerned. You would be
concerned. Yes, yes.
Right? And so my point is, how do you know what the authentic voice is?
Yeah.
I can get ideas. I can think, I can be convinced that, oh, this must be happening, which might be the origin of a lot of conspiracy theories. It doesn't make it right. So just because I hear a voice inside me or I get an idea, how do I distinguish? Is there only one voice inside ourselves? Because you earlier invoked, the five phases theory and the fact that we have different sources of knowledge throughout our bodies that, and this always drives me crazy. In the West, they think, oh, consciousness is just in the brain. Well, but still, you have to distinguish between all these voices, don't you? And that takes experience. And that's what an artist does. They go, well, I'm going to try this out. I got this idea. And oh, it wasn't a very good idea. Just because you get inspired is not the end of it. It's just the start of it. And then throughout the years, you get to understand the voice that comes to you. And there might be different voices, right? There's a voice that comes to me that says, stop painting now. There's nothing more you can do. Or there's a voice that says, hey, this is unfinished. And I will intentionally get myself in trouble when I make a painting. I mean, there's nothing more dull to me than to say, I know exactly what I'm going to paint and I'm going to paint it. I might as well go to work in a factory.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I love the spontaneity.
Yes, but that requires response. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'll do something intentionally, like I have no idea what I'm doing. Why did I do this? And then I have to find my way out of it. So part of creativity is problem solving. It's not just the voice that comes to you. That's just the beginning. It's all the technical problems, all the struggle to bring this into existence. Form. The voice is an idea. It's not a form. your job as an artist is to make it form. And that takes a lot of practice and perseverance to happen.
Next time on the Inspired Action Podcast.
In my experience, when I've healed from something, I often will have a flashback, a memory of when this happened. Sometimes just having the idea isn't enough, or what if the idea is not a very, interesting one? That means that some part of you is keeping track of your path and where you're going and is making choices. If your heart tells you this is where you need to go, then that's what you need to follow, because no external rewards and no external rejection is going to be a guide for what you need to do in life.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at leta@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.